We're looking at a passage in Acts chapter 20 that you could read part of this passage and it would be like, whoa, that's really cool. And then pass it by, like just, whoa, that was it. Man, that was really neat. And maybe you'd even talk about it and tell somebody else about it, or, a small group or a friend or something. It's like, whoa, but then you'd move on. And yet in a handful of lines, this one mini story, again, that really exemplifies for us the story of Jesus continued. There is an enormous amount of, as always in the story of Jesus continued, enormous amount of invitation to us. An enormous amount of like fireworks going off, flags waving, like flashing lights, saying, look, this could be for you. This is part of you. You're included in these types of moments and this type of movement. And so we're going to look at that today. Acts chapter 20, we're going to start reading in verse 7. We're just going to walk it out a little bit line by line with some thoughts along the way here for us. Here's what it says. It says, on the first day of the week, and so this is a guy named Paul. It's also Luke, who's with him at the time, and some other early followers of Jesus. Luke wrote the letter of Acts, and part of the time he's traveling with Paul on some missionary journeys. It says, on the first day of the week, we came together to break bread. This is really significant, like on the first day of the week, like that's not a throwaway line from Luke when he pens the letter to his friend Theophilus. What he's doing in part is saying, hey, Theophilus, what I want you to know in the story of Jesus continued is that it was a big deal for us to gather on a regular basis. It was a big deal for us to have a rhythm of gathering together. As followers of Jesus in the first century, and now a couple thousand years later, it's still a big deal. It's fact and still a biblical principle and practice designed for our good to consistently and regularly gather together. I'm going to talk about this more in some other settings in the weeks ahead, but I want to just pause a moment here and say, hey, church, this is remarkably important to us right now. In a world that continues to be divided and crazy, one of the things that we somewhat as the church have given up as a practice is we're just not really as faithful to gathering together. It's now common for us to say, oh man, I get to church once a month, or I gather with the church once every couple months, and yet that's my place. And here's what we're losing in that. We're losing the chance for the gathering of the church to be one of the things Jesus created to be, and that is a chance to recenter. That for 6 other days a week, we're exposed to crazy, and there's 24-hour news cycles, and there's pressures, and there's tensions, and everybody has an opinion, and volumes are getting louder, tensions are getting greater. And every night we need this every 7 days to come back, and together let's center. Together let's center back on Jesus and who he is, what he's offered us, what he's invited us into, how he's invited us to follow him. And so this has always been important, but in this season in particular, especially heading into fall, I understand summer, but especially heading into fall, I want to really challenge you. I want to really push you. Make gathering with the church, make the rhythm of the weekly gathering, make it the priority gift Jesus designed it to be. Not the pressured obligation, but the priority gift. He knew we needed it, so let's not resist what he knew we needed. We'll talk more about that in other environments going forward, but I think it's so interesting that Luke says that right off the bat, like, hey, first day of the week, we're gathering. So while they're gathered, here's what happens. Let's go on. We'll look at this story a little bit. It says, Paul, he spoke to the people, and because he intended to leave, he's leaving where he's been for a while, like in Ephesus there. So this is a big moment. He's like, I'm going to get everything in here. He says, because he intended to leave the next day, he kept on talking until midnight. Now, just for me, that gives me all sorts of permission. I don't want to hear any more complaints about a little bit of a late Sunday. No more, friends. I'm going to just start pointing people back here. Well, at least it wasn't till midnight. Okay, so this is Paul. He's talked till midnight. He's got a lot of things to say because he's leaving. And then this is where the action really starts. There were many lamps in the upstairs room because, again, it's getting late, right? They want to see it lit, but it's also creating some extra heat in this upstairs space where they were meeting. And as a result of that, seated in a window was a young man named Eutychus who was sinking into a deep sleep as Paul talked on and on. You see it? Paul's up there. He's got a lot to say. He's leaving these people. This is a goodbye message to them. All the things he hopes they remember and that they live. All of what he hopes they realize and grab a hold of with life in Jesus. So he gets a little long-winded, and it's late. And Eutychus, like in fairness to Eutychus, like we can point at the story and laugh at him a little bit, but listen, Eutychus, most of the people in the room were slaves. They worked hard all day. Eutychus had worked hard, and it was because of where they are. It's hot. And now he's in an upper room. He's listening to Paul, and he's trying to tune in, but he starts falling into this deep sleep. Now, I resonate with Eutychus just a little bit. I want to teach you a new word today. Okay, it's a little bit of a fun word, but I want to teach you a new word. It's not in your standard dictionary, but it is in the Urban Dictionary, and I discovered it just a few months ago while traveling with some people and having a conversation about the road trip we were on to reach our destination. And we looked up and we discovered this word. It's a new word I want to teach you today: carcolepsy. Carcolepsy. Now, you can even just try and say it, like wherever you are, Caledonia, Middleville, home on your couch, on the beach, whatever it is, just say, here we go, carcolepsy. Now, carcolepsy is what you might already be getting to. It is when you're in the car and you can't stay awake. It's when you're in the car and no matter what you do, you just fall asleep, right? It just happens, right? The reason I found this in the Urban Dictionary, the reason we even looked it up, is because I got this. I have this. Okay, I have this. If I'm in a moving car more than about 20 or 30 minutes and I'm in the passenger seat, it's lights out, friends. It's over. So this summer, when my family and I, when we traveled, we had a lot of hours on the road, made some 15-hour treks, and the bulk of the driving is done by Erica. She likes to drive. She's a good driver. She drives a lot anyways, right? Then the next highest amount of driving is not by me. It's by our daughter, Sydney. Sid, also a good driver, likes to drive. And then there's me, who I do like a little bit of the driving. And then there's Mackenzie, who doesn't ever want to drive, which is probably why she likes living in New York City, right? But she, I just don't drive a lot, but it means I'm in the passenger seat a lot, and I got this. So if we're on a 15-hour trip, I sleep hours. I wake up for a little bit, I fall back to sleep. I wake up, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much. I cannot stay awake. And they've actually done some research, and there's actually more technical medical terms that describe some of this. The slight vibration of the car, the constant hum of the noise of the car. Some people really are wired to fall asleep more easily. It's the same reason some people fall asleep so quickly on planes, which, yes, I do that as well, right? Again, it doesn't even matter how much sleep I've had. Carcolepsy. Any of you got carcolepsy? Any of you, you're in the passenger seat and you're out? I experienced a miracle a few weeks ago. Eric and I had to make a trip to Indiana. Her uncle passed away, and so we made a trip down to the funeral and back. And I stayed awake for a 2.5-hour trip in the car. I did it. I was so proud of myself. It was like, this is incredible. And Eric and I, we celebrated. It was great. I was like, man, I was a living miracle for that day, because I didn't give in to the carcolepsy, right? But just where I tend to fall asleep. Well, that's Eutychus a little bit in this service, where Paul's talking, right? I'd like to create another word, but I don't have the authority probably to create something for the Urban Dictionary. But some of you have churcholepsy. You just do. You're really good at falling asleep in church. I can start naming names right now. You think you're hidden, but I see you. I know where you sit, right? This is some of your best napping of the week, right? And so, we can't be hard on Eutychus. There's some of us, right? Just fall asleep. But there's a little deeper dynamic going on here. It's a little deeper dynamic. There is a real physical dynamic of falling asleep. But there's a little spiritual light being shown on us, inviting us to explore part of our heart and soul, our living, our relationships. With this kind of question: hey, where are you drowsy? Were you drowsy? Eutychus he didn't fall instantly into deep sleep. Just he was falling into a deep sleep. He was drowsy. He was tired. It had been a long day. Were you drowsy? In what parts of your life are you not as alert, maybe not as vibrant as you once were, maybe not as engaged, maybe half in, half out? A little bit, you hear what's going on around you, but you're starting to fall asleep. Were you drowsy? For some of us, we're drowsy around something as simple as just our hobbies. We've lost track of how to engage them and how to have fun. We've become so busy or so distracted or so knocked back by life that we've found ourselves starting to fall asleep. Even how to have fun, how to enjoy the things that God created us to enjoy. We're a little drowsy. It's been a while since we've been fully awake to what it is that we love to do, and that in many ways is recharging to us. The other extreme is probably also true. Some of us are drowsy to responsibility and excellence. We're so awake to hobbies and having fun that we've lost track of the rest of life, and we've lost track a little bit about, hey, what does matter in the end game as well. Just as much as fun is a gift, so are the things that we are responsible to steward, the relationships, the jobs, the incomes, the serving. Like we've gotten a little drowsy there. Some of us are a little drowsy to joy. We're a little lousy to joy. We're nodding off a little bit. There's enough negative swirling around us. There are enough things in our life. There's enough parts of our life breaking down or stalled out or struggling. It's just as easy to be negative. We're more awake to negativity than we are to joy. And yet the scriptures invite us to consider it all joy. Consider it all joy. When you're suffering, right? Not consider it all joy when everything is great, because that's easy. Consider it all joy when you're suffering. So even when times are difficult, are we awake to joy? Some of us, we're drowsy. We're drowsy when it comes to joy. We're falling asleep a little bit. We can go a little further. We can get a little more pointed, maybe. Some of us are drowsy. Something as meaningful as our marriage. We're married. We're drowsy. We're not really choosing to love our spouse the way we once did. We're not really choosing to serve the way we once did. If we're honest, we're not really enjoying our spouse the way we once did or thought we would. We're not dreaming together anymore. And we're drowsy. We're not completely checked out, but we're certainly not completely checked in. And drowsy happens as a result of causes, right? Eutychus is drowsy and falling asleep in part because it's late, in part because he worked hard all day, in part because it's warm. It's a combination of factors, right? Some of us are drowsy inside of marriage because we have this extra closet in the core of our heart somewhere that we have just stuffed disappointments in the relationship, unmet expectations, broken words, too much negativity. We've built all that up and we've stuffed it all in this closet, and we're not really talking about it. We're most days not even knowingly acknowledging it. It's all accumulated and it's made us a little drowsy. We're falling asleep. It's not just physical. It's not just Eutychus physically falling asleep. And I would even say, it's one thing to acknowledge drowsy, but it's another thing to understand the danger of drowsy, to be aware of where drowsy can lead. Let's keep looking at the passage and we'll see. When he, Eutychus, was sound asleep, he fell to the ground from the third story and was picked up dead. Eutychus is sitting next to this window, which would have been basically an almost floor to rooftop type of window area. And falls asleep, falls out, picked up dead. Started with drowsy. Started with a long day of hard work. Paul talking late into the night. Hot room. And it leads to, so let me ask you this question. It's one thing to ask, where are you drowsy? It's another one, maybe just as important, to ask, where are you dead? Where are you living and breathing and moving and dreaming? And where are you functioning? Where are you getting the job done? Where are you existing? But you're actually dead. Or you're inside of a context that's dead. Where are you not just drowsy to the ability to have fun, but where are you dead to it? Where have you given up on it? Where are you not just drowsy when it comes to joy, but where have you given up on joy being possible? Where have you just stopped thinking about joy? Where have you stopped asking how Jesus might bring joy? Where have you given up on joy because you're too afraid of being disappointed again? Where are you in something like a marriage where it feels dead? It feels more than drowsy. You're more than drowsy, you're dead. You don't even notice the disappointments anymore. You don't even notice the unmet expectations anymore. You can't even imagine fully and actively loving your spouse, dreaming for them again. There are millions of places. We could be drowsy, we could be dead. For some of us, it really is relationship with Jesus. We're a little drowsy. We have allowed ourselves to get careless. We've been in the passenger seat. We've been hoping some other people would be the drivers, and we're not really tuned in. We're loosely floating around the edges. We're kind of aware of Jesus. We a little bit loosely hear what he's trying to do in and through his church or in our lives, but we're also like in that fog of early sleep. We're not paying attention anymore. We're all around it, but not tuned in. Some of us, honestly, we've followed Jesus for a long time, but if we were really candid today, we're fairly dead to Jesus right now. And if you want to know, like, how would we define dead? Like, how do we really know? I mean, when something was dead, you come across a dead animal on the road, or if you really want to know if it's dead, it's when it's completely unresponsive. Dead is unresponsive. You can poke, you can yell, you can scream, you can kick, you can hope, you can wait, but it's unresponsive. Some of us, again, we're unresponsive to the ability to have fun, desire. We're unresponsive to even the offer of joy. We're unresponsive to the potential to love our spouse. And some of us were unresponsive to Jesus. We're unresponsive to his church. And we didn't get there in one move. We got drowsy first. We got a little distracted, or we thought we were doing too much, or we got a little drowsy. And that drowsiness, it became easier and easier to kind of tune out the voice and fall into something different. And before we knew it, we were dead. We were unresponsive. Today, I mean, let's just ask, where are you dead? Were you drowsy? Were you dead? Let's look at what happens. Paul went down, goes down a couple flights of stairs, threw himself on the young man. Just imagine it right there. Threw himself. That's an intentionally active, aggressive, assertive word that Luke chose to write to his friend Theophilus to show the intensity of Paul and the potential of what could be, right? He threw himself on the young man. He put his arms around him, and he said to everybody else, "Don't be alarmed. He's alive." Don't be alarmed. He's alive. Some translations would say, don't be alarmed. There's still the potential of life in him. There is still life to be had in him. Paul's like, I'm going to infuse life back in him. I'm going to call life back out of him. Don't be alarmed. He is alive. Now, listen. Of course, that's amazing because a literal human named Eutychus was literally dead and then literally raised to life. That happened to Jesus. It happened to lots of other people. It still happens in the world today. That is still happening around the world today. That's real. But what is equally is real is the truth that what's dead in you could be alive again. Fun, enjoyment could be alive. Joy could be alive. That marriage could be alive. And countless other aspects of your life. Listen, let me say this to you. What feels dead and what is dead can be alive again. What feels dead to you in your life, what feels unresponsive, where you feel like you can't muster a response to a person, to a cause, to an emotion, to the person of Jesus, to his church, and to the mission, what feels dead, what is dead, can be alive again. There's nothing that can't be resurrected. There is no gift of God that can't be resurrected in your life. Listen to me. Listen, let me say it again to you. There is no gift of God that can't be resurrected in your life. You are reborn. Your spirit comes alive when you surrender your life to Jesus, his forgiveness, his leadership, and his purpose. And your life is an ongoing resurrection from that day forward. There is no gift of God given to you that can't be resurrected in your life. Some of you got to go you got to push back. There's something you're not even willing to think about yet because for you, it died so many years ago. You gave up hope on it so many years ago. It was so dramatic. It was so painful. It was such a loss. Listen. You don't have to be without joy. You don't have to be without hope. You don't have to live with a mediocre relationship or your heart at a real medium temperature towards a relationship. You can be alive again. And here's the beauty of a resurrection. Listen to me. Man, you got to get a hold of this for a second. Your resurrection does not depend on somebody else's resurrection. The only resurrection that matters is Jesus and what he can do in yours. Can I just tell you something that I'm convinced was true with poor Eutychus in this moment? Somebody or somebody's in that house thought he was dead forever. I have a hunch because of what we know from when Jesus came back from the dead. I have a hunch there were people who watched it happen who thought, I'm still not real sure. So you might be in a relationship or in a group or in a setting of people, right? And you're like, I want to be resurrected, but they don't. It's okay. Yours first. Yours first. Yours first. Yours first. Don't make the resurrection of Jesus in your life, in your scenario, dependent on somebody else's. If Eutychus would have had to wait for every single person there to believe, it just feels real risky. Feels real risky. Right? So this is This is the statement we got to get, right? What feels dead in you, what is dead in you, wherever you are unresponsive. If you're unresponsive to Jesus, if you have gotten too drowsy with Jesus, you can be resurrected. You can become responsive to him again in a moment. In a moment. Your hurt can be healed. Your despair can be replaced with hope. Your discouragement can be replaced with joy. Your lack can be replaced with abundance. Anything in you, anything that feels dead or is dead in you, it can come to life again. It can be alive again. Do you know part of what we're seeing here? Part of what Paul's teaching through the example of this and the capturing the moment, part of what we're seeing is this is Luke including it in the story to Theophilus saying, Theophilus, man, wake up to this. Wake up to this. Wake up to what's possible. Wake up to what's reachable in you. Wake up to what's able to be resurrected in you. Like this is the cry of an awakening. This is like Luke said, man, please. Now, it's just as important. I want you to see what happens after this. Look at this, how this little story ends. Then he, Eutychus, right? He went upstairs again, and he broke bread, and they got something to eat, right? They had something to eat. After talking until daylight, he left. And the people took the young man Eutychus home alive, and they were greatly comforted. You see what Eutychus started doing after Paul raised him from the dead? He just went back to living. Went back upstairs, listened to Paul a little more, had some food, talked with the people. The people took him home, right? Right? But he's carrying with him a resurrection. He's carrying with him what was dead is now alive. Friends, I want to invite you to walk into your Monday with something alive in you that's been dead for too long. I want to invite you to walk into your Monday with something that is you are too drowsy in, fully alive and alert and awake. I want to invite you to let something in you be resurrected today. If you're just barely drowsy, let a resurrection come before you're dead to it. If you are dead, been dead, away from it for a long time, let today be a day of a resurrection for you. What feels dead and what is dead can be alive again. It's the truth of this moment and of this story. It's the truth of Jesus. Jesus really was dead and really is alive again. Same is true for you. Same is true for each bit, piece, compartment of your life. Now I want to hand this back to your location so we can have an opportunity together to respond to this, to even today experience a resurrection in us. I love you, church. Let's not miss this opportunity.